Hi everyone, welcome back to the Foundations in Pre-Calculus 10 videos. In this video, we're going to look at Lesson 8 from Chapter 3, which is looking at factoring special polynomials. So specifically in this video, we're going to look at factoring using a difference of squares. And so a difference of squares is a binomial in the form of a squared minus b squared. So essentially what's happening is that we have this perfect square, and we are subtracting another perfect square. So if we were to look at the factored form of a difference of squares, then essentially what it is, we have a plus b times a minus b. So essentially to get to this factored form is that we draw two brackets multiplying each other. So inside of our each of our brackets, on the left side is going to go our first term. We're going to square root it. So the square root of a squared is just a. So that goes on the left side. Then you square root your second term. So square root of b squared is just b. That goes on your right side. Then you separate one side with a plus sign. Then you separate one with a minus sign. And then you will get your factored form. So just to recap this, because it is important, is that you can only use the difference of squares when you have a binomial where you have your two terms are perfect squares and there's the operation is subtraction. Okay. Otherwise, you'd have to go with a different method like factoring, or I guess even just solving for the variable. But this one here is one of those special types of polynomials that we have a special way to solve. So we're going to look at examples 1a and b from your notes under the difference of squares section. So here we're going to factor the first binomial. The first one here, we have 81m squared minus 49. Now these two, 81m squared and 49, are both perfect squares, and the operation here is subtraction, which means that we can go ahead and use our difference of squares method. So what we're going to do is, to get to our first step here, is we're going to square root 81m squared. And if it helps your brain, you can do each one separately. So you can do square root of 81 and square root of m squared, which will give you 9m. Then you can do your second term. So square root of 49 is simply just 7. So then you're going to write or draw two brackets. So your first term goes on the left side in each bracket. So you have 9m and 9m. Our second term goes on the right side. Then we separate one with a plus sign, one with a minus sign. And here is our fully factored form. So now we'll look at our second example here. And here our binomial is 162 v to the power 4 minus 2 times w to the power 4. So just by looking at this binomial right here, we can say that this is not a difference of squares. First off is that 162 is not a perfect square, and neither is 2. If we were to put those into our calculators, we would get decimals, which means that they are not perfect squares. But one thing that you might notice is that between these two terms is that they have a common factor of 2. So what we can try doing is pulling out a common factor of 2 and see if the resulting binomial is a difference of squares. So I'm going to pull out a common factor of 2, which means I'm going to divide each term by 2. So 162 v to the power 4 leaves me with 81 v to the power of 4. And then our second term is negative 2 w to the power of 4 divided by 2 gives us negative w to the power of 4. So now we can notice inside our binomial here is that we now have a difference of squares. 81 is a perfect square, v to the power of 4 is a perfect square, and so is w to the power of 4. So now we can go ahead and we can use our difference of squares on the binomial inside our brackets. So we can start by square rooting our first term. So we can do the square root of 81 v to the power of 4. Square root of 81 is 9, and v to the power of 4 is v squared. Then we can do our second term here. So square root w to the power of 4, which will leave us with w squared. Then we can go ahead and use our difference of squares method. Just don't forget to bring down this 2 that we pulled out earlier. So we have 2, and then you can go ahead and draw those 2 empty brackets. On the left side goes our first term, which was 9v squared. And on the right side goes our second term, which was w squared. Then in one set of brackets, you separate the 2 terms with a plus sign. Then the other is a minus sign, and there is our difference of squares. One thing I want to draw to our attention, though, is that this is not fully factored. This is not fully factored because if you look at this third term here, I guess this second set of brackets, you'll notice that 9v squared and w squared is also a difference of squares, which means that we can keep going. This here, this 2 and the 9v squared plus w squared, this is fully factored, this is done. But we can keep going with this second set of brackets. So let's go ahead and square root our first term. So square root of 9v squared is 3v. And the square root of our second term, w squared, is just w. So I'm going to rewrite our first 2 items here. So we have 2 times 9v squared plus w squared. And then I'm going to draw my 2 empty brackets again for our second set of brackets to do that difference of squares. So on the left side goes our first term, which is 3v. And on the right side we have w. Then we'll separate one with a plus sign, one with a minus sign. And that there is our fully factored form of our original binomial. So these ones here cannot be broken down any further into its factors. So this one here is all done. So sometimes you might have to go through quite a lengthy process to fully factor something, and that's okay though. So that is everything here for this video. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to come see me in class or text me on Remind 101. And thank you guys so much for watching.